Welcome to the You're Not Crazy podcast, hosted by Jessica Knight, a certified life coach who specializes in healing from narcissistic and emotional abuse. This podcast is intended to help you identify manipulative and abusive behavior, set boundaries with yourself and others, and heal the relationship with yourself so you can learn to love in a healthy way. You can connect with Jessica and find additional resources, content, and coaching at emotionalabusecoach.com.
Before we begin, I just want to make a quick note. At the end of this episode, I spend the last 4 minutes walking through the way people work with me and where to find resources, my links, and my courses. If you are a returning listener or are already a client, you can absolutely skip that part. If you're new or trying to figure out what kind of support you need, it's there for you. It's the last 4 minutes. Thank you so much for being here. In my last episode on this topic, the angry daughter, I wrote about how I fit the role of angry daughter my whole life. And that's not because I was angry, but because I was the one who could see what was happening and couldn't pretend otherwise. Sometimes the angry daughter is described as the scapegoat, truth teller, the one the system assigns tension to, so it doesn't have to change. It's the person that absorbs everything in silence because speaking up costs too much. What I didn't write about is what she does when she tries to love someone, because it turns out that the same survival skills that kept her intact in her family of origin are the exact ones that quietly destroy her in relationships. Throughout my life, I have spent years not dating. I've also spent years in relationships. I'm really good at being alone. Good enough that I almost convinced myself that I preferred it, and sometimes still do. And that I was/am too clear-eyed for it all. I'm too tired, too done. I have proudly called myself asexual a lot of times. And then a few years ago, someone came along who likely needed to be seen, and he was suffering or performed suffering so convincingly that I couldn't tell the difference if he was a victim or he was performing victimhood. And so he had this whole story about how unfair everything had been to him and how no one really understood him and how he'd given and never received. And I understood it immediately and I believed every word. And that's the thing about the quote unquote angry daughter. That's what she does when she finally lets herself want love. She mistakes recognition for connection. And she spent her whole life being the one who sees clearly, who names what's happening, and who holds the truth when no one else will. So when someone shows up performing pain, she leans in and believes them the way she wanted to be believed. And she thinks she finally has found someone who gets it. Someone who's also caring more than they should. Someone who's also misunderstood. She doesn't realize that she has simply found someone who needs her strength, but will not be there for it too. In my relationship, I was really good at having his back. I could hold the emotional weight of what he was carrying. I could track the patterns. I could name things. I could stay regulated when he wasn't, which was a lot of the time. And I could absorb the version or his version of events and help him make sense of it. Like I found myself in these places of being strong all the time so he wouldn't fall apart. But what I couldn't do and what I didn't even realize I was doing was let him have my back. Because that would have required wanting something in the first place. Would have required me asking for something or trusting that I was even allowed to need something. That doesn't mean that he could hold it. Like if you're listening to this, I'm going to assume this isn't the first time that you're listening to me because this isn't the first episode most people would click on. They'd click on trauma bonding or, things about abuse. But to click on an episode that kind of gets into the core of this, I'm guessing you've been here for a while. So you know most likely that even if I did want something, he couldn't have held it in the first place. Or it would have been weaponized against me because he would have needed that space to be his. And so it doesn't take away from the fact that it would have required me wanting something, asking for something, or trusting that I was even allowed to need something. The angry daughter overfunctions in love the same way that she overfunctions as a kid. In my case, I made myself indispensable, became one that holds things together, who manages the emotional temperature. And I would say that I didn't necessarily do it because I wanted to, but it was the only version of love that I knew. And I learned early that needing something cost the connection, and that being too much, too sad, too tired, too hurt made me the problem. So I swallowed it and I kept going and became the person a relationship could lean on. And I wondered why nobody was holding me. There's a moment that led me to think about this deeper. And I was in Spain with my daughter in April. I was sitting in the hotel lobby on these ridiculously comfy couches in a very aesthetic, pleasing lobby, watching the Knicks game at Spain 1 a.m. time on my laptop. And in the background of the lobby, a song came on. And it was a very slow, stripped down version of Home Is Wherever I'm With You. And it broke me open right there. And I'm not an overly emotional person, but I am sensitive. My daughter picked up on something shifting for me. Maybe I wasn't making a comment or something like that. And she asked me why I was getting sad. And that day is the day we traveled to Spain. So I was tired and I replied, I just wanted to be able to show you something healthy in a relationship. And I meant, oh my God, like sometimes I talk about this stuff and I don't think that it's going to hit me. You know, as I'm like working from this outline for this podcast, and then it does. And like, I'm sure you can hear it. And when I said it, I didn't know that I ever wanted to be with somebody again, if I'm being honest. I didn't tell her that, but it made me wonder if I was even capable of it. I had spent so long in relationships where I was the one holding everything and managing everything and tracking everything. Relationships that began with so much intensity that it felt like love, but it really actually was just chaos. And I found myself wanting to run all the time. But much like this entire year, I was sitting there watching my daughter, who's small and trusting and deserving of every good thing. And I was thinking about what I was teaching her about what love looks like. And I think that there's another part to the angry daughter in love that nobody talks about. And I think that this is probably part of what keeps me from it, because I think it would take a lot for me to trust someone right now, especially considering how much my daughter needs me right now. But I don't think that the angry daughter just attracts people who need her strength. I think the angry daughter also chases validation from them in ways that she can't fully see while it's happening. And in a lot of cases, the angry daughter, or me specifically, grew up being told that her reality was wrong and that her perceptions were wrong and her needs were the problem. So underneath everything, somewhere, all that competence and clarity and strength is still covering up a little girl who just wants to hear, "You're doing a good job." She wants to feel chosen. She wants someone to see her, not the capable version that she performs for the world, but the real one underneath, the one who is a full person. And the truth is, without knowledge of these patterns, she will accept very poor substitutes for that. I've been that person. I am that person. I have mistaked someone's chaos for their passion. And I will interpret unavailability as depth or focus. And I have been known to hold on to very small moments, which makes me a recipe for disaster when it comes to love bombing. Such as a text that made me laugh for an hour or something felt real, and use it to justify staying somewhere that was slowly taking something away from me. It's a very long way to say that she's willing to hurt herself to feel seen. And I know this because I did it. I did it while knowing intellectually exactly what was happening. I couldn't name every dynamic. And sometimes I could see patterns. I would map out the cycle of abuse, but I still stayed and chased and deleted things I didn't want to delete and swallowed things I didn't want to swallow and told myself that the crumbs that I was getting was enough. And the worst part is not that I was manipulated, though I was, but the worst part is how familiar it felt and how much it resembled the home I came from, where my job was to absorb and manage and never need too much and keep going and silence myself so much that I didn't even know what I thought, let alone what I actually wanted to say. So love was conditional on my compliance, and somehow my silence and abandonment of my own feelings told the other person that I was strong. My silence and abandonment of my feelings told the other person I was strong. Because when I had them, when I set boundaries, the relationship blew up, at least the last one. And so one way I think about it and why I think like this healing work is important is because I escaped the home and I built a life and identity outside of it. But there have been times in my life where I walked right back into that same architecture. And I came across a post recently that listed what the angry daughter actually wants in love. Not what she settles for, not what she chases, but what she genuinely needs. And it describes someone who doesn't make her manage another person on top of everything she's already managing. Someone who sees her as the powerful person she is and not just a capable one. Someone who is present enough that her nervous system can finally stop being on alert. And someone who says, I already took care of that for you, and doesn't hold it against her. I read it often, and when I read it the first time, I felt something really complicated. Best way to describe it happened for me because I do want those things, and I want them in a way that took me a long time to admit, because admitting it meant confronting the lie I'd been living inside for most of my life, that I don't need anyone. And if I just hold everything together long enough and quietly enough and capably enough, I will finally feel safe. But I won't be safe. I will just be exhausted. I don't have a tidy ending for this podcast, and I don't think there is one, honestly. And I'm not writing from the other side of this, from some healed, resolved place where I've figured it all out. I am writing from inside of the process of figuring it out and from doing my healing work, because I have never once on this podcast in almost 300 episodes ever said that I am fully healed and I am done. I'm on the other side. I'm completely okay. Never once, because I don't believe that. And I believe that healing is a journey. And I'm learning that it's okay to want things, and learning it's okay to want a hug without having to earn it through over-functioning. And so this obviously is vulnerable to share, and I didn't even realize it. I do talk to clients about dating and healing, and I'm working on some stuff around that right now, because I kind of have gone through it and then stepped away from it. And right now, at time of recording, which by the time this post could change, but I've been in this like more distant place from dating, but there's starting to be something opening. I think when you have or at least I don't know if everyone feels this way, but I know that when my daughter's struggling and when it's kind of going up and down for a while, I don't want anything to take my focus away. And based on what I've seen in my own history and maybe in my own patterns, I'm worried I'm going to lose that focus. And I'm not willing to. So the wall is even more up than normal. But I am working on some content around healing and moving and dating after abuse, because I know how hard that is. If you recognized yourself in this, you're not imagining things. You're not broken for having chased wrong things. You learn to love the way you were taught to, and you're allowed to want something different. And so if you need support, as always, you can reach out to me at emotionalabusecoach.com. If this episode resonated and you're realizing that what you're dealing with isn't just stress or miscommunication, there are ways to get support that don't minimize what you're experiencing. I'm going to spend the next couple of minutes telling you about my offerings, because at the core of my business is one-on-one coaching. The podcast is something that I do because I do like being able to help a broader audience, but The truth is that the core of my work is really coaching and providing other offerings so that people can begin to heal. At the center of everything I do is one-on-one coaching. That's where I slow things down, listen closely, and help you make sense of what's happening in your specific situation. It's not a template. It's not just based on theories, but it's really focused on your real life. Some people start with a one-time validation call. That is a single focus session where we look at one specific situation or pattern that you're struggling with. And the goal isn't to fix your life or push you into decisions. It's to help you name what's happening, put it into context of reality, help you notice where you are in it, and offer some feedback and tools to how to navigate it. I also offer an intro call. The intro call used to be called the clarity call, and it's a short call where you can share what's going on for you, and I can explain how I work and whether I'm the right fit for your situation. There's no obligation to continue after that. It's simply a way for us to get on the same page before moving forward. For people who need ongoing support, I offer weekly or biweekly coaching. This is especially helpful if you're navigating emotional abuse, trauma bond, high conflict divorce, or custody and co-parenting with a difficult or controlling person. Ongoing work allows us to track patterns over time, stay anchored when things escalate, and make decisions in a way that protects your nervous system and your long-term stability. All of my coaching options can be found on my websites, emotionalabusecoach.com and highconflictdivorcecoaching.com. Both links are available in the show notes of this episode. In addition to one-on-one coaching, I offer several self-paced courses and programs. They're called Divorcing a Narcissist 101, How to Document for Family Court, the Emotional Abuse Breakthrough Course, Setting Boundaries with a Narcissist, and Unhooked, which is my program and private podcast that walks you through the full cycle of abuse, helps you map it out in your relationship, and shows you how to begin to break free from the trauma bond. I also write on Substack, where I explore topics like trauma bonding, emotional abuse, coercive control, high conflict divorce, and the cluster B dynamics. There's a free option and a paid membership that offers deeper dives, Q&As, and additional resources. Everything that I do and everything that I build is around one core truth and message that you're not crazy, you shouldn't feel crazy, and that even though I can see patterns in what you're experiencing, it doesn't mean that it's normal. It's not healthy. My work is really about helping you understand what's happening and begin to trust yourself again. All of the links that I shared are in my show notes, and I really appreciate you being here.